2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
What is the worst marriage advice that some people think is good?
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brandon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it. All right, Tyler. I've heard plenty of that from my clients. But before
Probably
we
give
get
it some
into that,
yourself.
yeah, I actually have received some myself. Before we get into that, a quick review here. It says, "You are awesome and have helped me see things in a new way, a way that has created space for growth away from my old mindset. Thank you for doing this work. I share your podcast with as many people as I can."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love to hear reviews like that.
Yeah. Our goal is to help with some paradigm shift and thinking differently. So I'm glad to hear that it's working with somebody.
Yeah, it's nice. We're lucky because right now we're still small enough that the only reviews we really get are people that are still fans. So
I don't know about that. We've gotten some others.
Actually, we have. We've actually grown every single week, and it's largely due to the people who are talking about it and sharing it and leaving reviews and things. So we appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I love how he said he's sharing it. I mean, that's what we need right now. So please
Yeah.
keep sharing it as much as you can. So, all right, Tyler, tell me some bad advice that you've heard. Maybe you've gotten it yourself. The ones we're going to talk about, I think, are the ones that we hear a lot.
Yeah.
But let's just what we want to do is throw out the advice and then break it down. And
yeah. So you guys think about like when you guys who are married or in relationships, you get some advice from people, whether it's, your pastor or your parents or your best friends or whatever. And everyone's quick to give advice. And we were just talking a little bit today before we came on here about some of the pieces of advice that people often really believe about marriage that actually causes them problems. So Brandon, let's just kind of go back and forth. We'll just break down a couple of them, okay? So the first one, really simple and basic. This is one that I think everybody who's in a marriage has heard from somebody. And it's, don't ever go to bed angry at each other.
Oh my! I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Ugh. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, so let's figure out why do you think that's such a popular piece of advice?
Well, the reason I think it's a popular piece of advice is because when people go to weddings and things like that, they don't know what kind of advice to give, and they've heard it over and over again, so they might as well just throw that cliche one out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thinking behind it is don't sweep things under the rug. deal with things as they come, don't hold resentments toward each other. All these things are good things, absolutely healthy, good things. Don't resent each other, work through things, find some resolution, compromise. All of those things are awesome. But there's a big flaw in that advice, a big, huge flaw in that advice that causes some problems. And here's some of the flaws. One is if you're working out difficult things, and they're emotional, they're hard, one of the worst times to do it is when you're tired and it's late at night. You're not in your wise mind. You're not processing through things in a very healthy way. And if you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, we got to work this out before we go to sleep tonight, you're going to dig yourself deeper holes, get more frustrated, and cause more problems. So that's one of the big flaws, is it doesn't take into account fatigue and tiredness and being in your wise mind.
Maybe one of the worst things that breaks people down, excuse me, and I'm going to be a hypocrite when I say this, because you know what my sleep schedule is like, but being tired is maybe one of the worst things for our emotional vulnerability.
Yep.
And so when we're already amped up and mad at each other, and then we're going to try to go and force ourselves through that when we're both dead tired at the end of the day, when we've lost all of our willpower, that's likely to have you sit up until 1 or 2 in the morning and not come to a resolution and be more angry and bitter at each other and still not be able to sleep. And then you wake up in the morning and you're so exhausted that you don't talk to each other, and you get up and go to work, and then you start it all over the next night, and it becomes this kind of like really unhealthy feedback loop where there's going to be nothing but more frustration and disconnection, instead of the alternative, which would be, hey, this is really important. We need to give it the energy and the attention that it really deserves. And right now I don't have anything in the tank, so I'll touch base with you in the morning. Let's get some sleep.
Right. When I think about this advice, the person with anxious attachment will love this advice. Yeah, we got to fix it. Let's do it now. Let's connect. Let's fix this. Let's make sure we're all okay right now. The person with avoidant attachment will hates this advice. I want to avoid this. I don't want to. And the fact of the matter is sometimes when you need to work something out as a couple, sometimes there is a period where you got to cool down. You do have to take some space and do some self-care. And sometimes, something blows up toward the end of the night. If you're not given that leeway to take that space to get to your wise mind because you got to fix it right now because it's getting late, that's problematic. So,
yeah, if you're in a relationship and your goal is to be in it for the long term, then it's okay to view it from a long-term perspective and realize that you, at least for the time being, you plan on being married to that person tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and it's going to be okay if it takes a little bit of time to figure it out and iron it out. As long as that other advice that's kind of underneath that bad advice is still in play, which is, yeah, we can't necessarily run and hide from our problems either. We definitely need to spend some time.
Let's not sweep things under the rug. Let's face the difficult
challenges. Let's schedule some intentional time when we can actually have the energy, and when both of us are coming to it with a wise mind to say our goal is to try to figure this out and kind of be connected on something, and not to necessarily just sit and fight for the sake of fighting.
As therapists, you and I never have any issues in our marriage because we have the perfect marriage, right? Because
yeah.
But for those other people that have issues in their marriage, actually, what I was going to say is some of the most productive conversations and talks that me and my wife have been ones where we've been left with really difficult feelings of uncomfortableness, feeling really challenged by the other person, even maybe a little bit angry and resentful because she's pushed me or I've pushed her by reflecting some things back to each other. And it hasn't been a bad thing for her or for I to chew that stuff up for a little while, to really think about the feedback that I'm getting from her or the feedback that I gave to her. We don't need resolution right then. We need sometimes processing. And in that processing is where a lot of the growth happens, and where our relationship really becomes a huge blessing in our life. So if we don't give space for that, if we have to solve it, we have to solve it now, then we're acting anxiously attached, and trying to force something that is not ready yet. And in me saying that, what I'm not encouraging is to avoid anything.
It's almost, Brandon, like you, it's almost like when you cook a really good steak, right? And you're like anxious to like just eat that steak fresh off of the grill. And what's the best way to treat a really good steak? You take it off the heat,
You let it sit.
you let it rest.
Yep.
You let it rest, and then as it rests, it kind of reaccumulates all of the juices and things, and it makes it more tender, and it's actually more enjoyable to eat and consume if it's given time to rest. And I think that's the point that you're bringing across here is, yeah, let's have some discussion, but let's give the period of time to let it rest. And I can tell you personally that there have been several times when the conversation has ended and it's right on the verge of maybe going into some real conflict. It's been on kind of a heated conversation. And then I go walk away and I have to usually I go run my dog. I'm so lucky I've got a dog because that's my excuse to get away and take my time to rest. But while I'm out there walking, I'm churning things and I'm figuring things out. And by the time I get done with my walk, more often than not, I get to come home and say, hey, you're right about this stuff. Here's the parts that I really think are true. And here's the parts that I want to work on. And I appreciate that you brought that up, even though it's really hard for me to hear. And that's an important part. It's like we can't be on go all the time, especially when you hit a wall. Sometimes it's okay to take that break and let things settle for a minute.
Yep. And sometimes taking that break, when you reopen it again, your mind can see answers that weren't there when you're in the drama, in the heat of the moment. And you can actually make some real headway because you've given it some time to rest. And so, having to fix it right then and forcing the fix does not help your relationship. Okay. Great. So should we move on to another one?
Yeah, you kind of touched on another one already, just with what you were talking about.
Go for it. Throw it out there.
Okay, this is the one I think that you mentioned a little bit earlier, but it's me and my spouse have to agree on everything.
Yeah. I love these. They just make me sick. You know why? Because I see the long-term effects of these type of beliefs. I see the years of resentment that couples have with each other because they believe garbage like this. And although that sounds seemingly good, it'd be wonderful if we agreed on everything. That is as codependent as it comes.
Explain codependence a little bit, Brandon.
Well, a healthy relationship is interdependent, and so there's an independent relationship where you don't have a relationship at all. There's a codependent relationship where you lack boundaries with each other, so you have to you almost become each other. You don't have your own truths. You don't have your own boundaries, and so there's a lot of resentment in a codependent relationship. But it's oftentimes driven from a fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection. So I'm going to become what you need me to become, as opposed to I'm going to be authentically me.
Okay, Brandon. So with that, before you go into the interdependence, I'm just going to throw a wrench in the works for you to think about and chew on here for a second.
Bring it on.
If we're looking at it from a Christian perspective, and what do we learn about the Christian perspective on marriage? What do they say about marriage?
But to become one?
Become one flesh, right? You just described that when you were describing codependency, didn't you?
Let me counter your Christian perspective here with this. The best example of interdependency is Jesus Christ himself.
Okay,
Jesus Christ, you read the Bible, and I won't get too preachy here, but time and time again, he hands people's stuff right back to them. He doesn't take on all the problems. He doesn't agree with them. He doesn't show up fake. He'll step into conflict. He'll have boundaries, and he'll hand truth back to them over and over again. And so in a healthy relationship, each person is coming to the table as an individual. You are an individual, right? I'm going to answer your question as one. I believe that two individuals who are empowered to be an individual, when they can connect and come to the table together, using their individuality, how God made them, they can connect in one purpose. So in that purpose might be to raise a family. It might be to start a company. It might be to create whatever, but that those two individuals. So it's not my wife becoming me and me becoming her so that we can create our purpose. It's her fully being her the way God made her, and me fully being me so that we can together create our purpose. Does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense to me, Brandon. And what you're doing right now is you're actually debunking another myth about finding a mate that says you find the person that completes you,
Ugh.
or that you can't live without.
Yeah, the codependency right there. I need to use you so that I'm okay.
Right.
So I want to come back to this. I need to agree on everything, because then it begs the question, okay, what if we don't agree on anything? Like, how do we have how do we have a good relationship? And, my wife might say the sky is orange, and I'll say the sky is blue. And obviously I'm right because I'm always right.
Right.
But I could spend all day trying to convince her that the sky is blue. And she'd say, no, it's orange. Here's the deal, Tyler. A healthy relationship is not about agreement. A healthy relationship is about understanding. And so if I can go over and understand her and understand why she sees the sky as orange, and she feels like I care about her and I care about that the sky is orange, she's going to feel loved. She's going to feel connected to. And if I say, but the sky's blue to me, she's not going to say, no, you better think it's orange. She's going to understand me and say, well, I want to know what it's like for you to see the sky as that color. And in that safety, that's where that intimacy exists, where we can each be ourselves and disagree with each other at the same time as empower each other and understand each other. That's a healthy relationship.
That's excellent, Brandon. And I think the principle here, if we're listening for our listeners, if they're trying to glean, like, what do I do? Like, what kind of practice would I do then to challenge this idea? Because we have a hard time, like when we're confronted with blue and orange, we often see things so blue, and it's so true, that we don't want to take the time to understand how it can be seen as orange. And I think that the principle here you're talking about is curiosity and non-judgment, where before I cast the judgment and stay stuck in my own personal truth, I can table my truth inside for a second, and I can say, wow, like, help me see how the sky is orange. And you know what? If you sit and you talk to somebody long enough, you can see that they're either wearing a different lens, or they might be looking at it when it's sunset and
the sky is orange.
And the sky is orange. And so being curious not only opens up the possibility of having new learning take place, but it also offers the things you're talking about, which is that then there's now the opportunity to have empathy and understanding and still have connection. And here's the key, and this is where a lot of, like, the couples that we work with have problems, is they feel like if they end and don't agree, that they haven't been able to be empathetic or understanding. If my partner doesn't agree, or if I don't agree with my partner, then they feel like they're not understood. When that's totally false, actually.
That's not true.
I can truly, fully understand
empathize
what my partner
and understand.
is saying. I can reflect that back to them, and we can both say, yeah, we kind of see that a little bit differently right now. And that's okay. Like, there's some validity to both sides here.
Right. Loving somebody, though, is not giving them their way, right? So loving somebody is not falling on a knife and being like, okay, you see it as orange, so I'll just I guess I'll say it's orange too. That's not loving somebody. And there's an uncomfortable part of a relationship that has to be there. And it's like, let me give you an example. Our bed, we had a flood at our house. Our bed got wet. And my wife knew that our bed was full of mold. Like, we had to get rid of the bed.
Convinced.
Like, she knew it was just full of mold, and it was going to get us really, really sick. And I knew that it wasn't. And I wasn't very interested in buying a $600 mattress. And so I could throw it in her face. I could give her all the evidence as to how I know there's no mold in there. I could cut the bed open. I could, just show her. What would that do?
You'd be right. You'd be a horse's ass, but you'd be right.
Yeah. And then once I'm right, I could just use that for the rest of my life.
Rub it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but let's say I go over to her side. Let's say I go, empathize, I understand. And I really go there. I'm like, man, what would it be like to feel like my bed was full of mold? Like that would suck. I don't believe our bed's full of mold. But to her, it feels like it's full of mold, right? Now I got to ask myself something. Am I really okay with getting rid of the bed and spending $600 on a new bed? Well, part of the inputs to that decision for me are me caring about her feelings, right? So if I say, you know what, let's get rid of the bed, I'm choosing that. I can't blame her for that. I'm choosing that. I'm choosing to get rid of the bed while I still think that there's no mold in the bed. I still
Yes.
believe that, but I understand how she feels. So therefore, I'm going to compromise here, at least. And this has to go both ways in a healthy marriage. Sometimes we'll compromise your way. You see that there's mold in the bed, and I'm okay this time, like, let's get rid of that bed. But that compromise needs to go both ways. So both people feel seen and valued and understood in a relationship, right?
Yeah, and in your example, I think, Brandon, the key here is that if you make that choice, you're making that choice not because you feel like your arm's twisted or because you have to be the wrong one. You actually worked yourself to a place of saying, man, it's worth it to me. If I was in her shoes and the peace of mind that she doesn't have, it's worth it to me for her to have that peace of mind. And so maybe that's worth the expense, even though I truly know that there's no mold here. You've come to a place where your heart stays at peace, where you see you're making an intentional choice where you factored in the relationship into the decision. And I'm hearing your story and I'm going, if I'm in your same shoes, I'm probably going to slow play that a little bit. And I'm going to be saying, hey, let's test this out for a minute and see if there's actual mold in the bed, right? And
Right.
let's see if you can sleep. Let's see if you can get a good night's rest over the next few nights. Let's talk. Let's touch base in a few
Right.
days or whatever.
That might be the compromise on her part.
And that would be okay too, right?
Right.
But either way, there's understanding going both directions, and so there hasn't been an agreement, and the agreement actually isn't the goal.
Right.
Understanding and connection is the goal.
Exactly. So when it's interesting, Tyler, that all my experience working with couples and even my own personal experience is when couples can get to that place of understanding and empathy, the decision isn't that hard. When they feel loved, when they feel understood and not fought against and not drama, but the decision of how to move forward is kind of a piece of cake. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
But I do want to say that when you do compromise, both partners are trying to understand each other. And so it's got to be both partners taking a turn compromising, right? And being willing to compromise some. So,
well, the key word here is willingness. It's actually unhealthy, I think, Brandon. I see this happen all the time with like financial things with people where the compromise is, well, you went on this trip with your girlfriend, so no, I'm going to go spend $1,000 on a new gun at the sporting goods
no,
store.
that's called passive aggressiveness. It's not compromise.
That's not compromise.
No,
that's what people think compromise is.
No, that's not compromise at all. So, okay, do we have time for one more, Tyler?
Let's do one more, Brandon. Do you have one on your mind?
It's kind of a big one. It's like a client dropping a bomb in the last 5 minutes of a session.
Let's see what we can do. We can always do a new episode if we have to. Drop it.
Okay. A common myth in marriage that I hear usually comes from like mom or grandma, and it's talking to their daughters, and it says something like this: just make sure you take care of his needs. You know what I mean?
And that's totally laced with all sorts of stuff that they don't even understand because they felt too taboo to talk to them about it.
Yeah, so they don't even say what it's actually about, which they're talking about sex.
Right. Ooh, that's a good one.
Make sure you take care of his needs.
I gotta tell you a story about this one. I was privy to it with some friends when we were living back up in Idaho. We were at a friend's house, and these friends of ours, he's a little bit older than me, and he had a family, and he had a daughter who was just getting ready to get married. And we were over at dinner at their house, And we were talking about the upcoming wedding and things, and he busted out some advice, and he said, I just told my daughter, and his daughter's sitting right there. He's like, I just told my daughter that every man needs some ice cream, and if the freezer's locked, he's going to go somewhere else to get his ice cream.
Man, he told his daughter that.
Yeah. I'm like, that is
he's like proud of himself.
Oh, and he thinks he just nailed it, just like he thinks he's funny and witty, and he gave great advice. And I'm like, that's like the worst thing you could just say to your daughter right there.
Right. I mean, in all of this advice, there's elements of truth, right? So a healthy sex life is a good part of intimacy that's important for a marriage and important for a relationship. No question. That is true.
Yes.
But we talked about generational patterns last week. If a mom or a grandma's or even a dad is passing down these type of thoughts, what they're passing down is things like obligatory sex, feeling forced, not wanting to have sex but doing it anyways in a marriage, because you're scared that you're not providing, for your partner, and undermining what a real healthy sex life is about, which is about both partners coming to the table honest and open about who they are and where they're at, and respecting that in each other and nurturing intimacy that leads to a connection like that. The obligation doesn't do that. Force doesn't do that. Making yourself do that because you have to, that's not very exciting for a woman. It doesn't really rev up her sex life because she feels forced into having sex with her husband.
It actually does the opposite, Brandon. At least most of the time when we work with couples, there's this pressure, and couples come in and they've done the whole thing where they do the even and the odd days, and he's pouting because she didn't put out on Monday, and that was an on day, and then she's like, oh, I can't believe I signed up for this, and then he's not fulfilled when it does happen, and she's not either, because now she's doing it because it's obligated. He's doing it, he's engaged because he feels entitled to it. And what happens is that the very thing that makes sex so wonderful for couples is the ability to be connected in such a way where they're vulnerable. They're extremely vulnerable. And what happens with this is it sort of puts so much pressure on the system. It's put so much pressure, in this case, on the woman that we're talking about, that she actually was more likely to close up instead of being able to feel safe and secure and open herself to the emotional experience of being able to kind of lean in, and Susan Johnson calls it descend into vulnerability.
Right.
Because it feels like this obligation instead of this choice, instead of this ability to kind of use her agency to say, this is the interdependent part that you were talking about earlier, to say, yeah, I'm here. I want to lean in, instead of I've got to do this, or he's going to go somewhere else, or I'm a bad wife, or something else. And the bad thing about this is this advice, it gets doubled down on because the husband hears it, and then he reinforces it. And then he pulls out, if we want to pull out more biblical verses, he pulls out the Bible and he uses religion against her on it too.
Right. And, which feeds the guilt and
more guilt, more shame.
Feeds her feeling trapped into this cycle.
More disconnection.
So I told you I was going to bust out one that we could break down for a while, but let's kind of leave it there for today. Maybe we can readdress this on a deeper level on another episode. But these have been good, Tyler. I think I hope people listening can relate and oh yeah, I believed that, and that didn't help us. I think there's a lot of beliefs. If you look at your marriage and it's just not working, chances are there's some faulty beliefs underneath on both of your parts, you and your partner, that are driving the outcomes that you're getting in your relationship. So you might have to challenge some things that feel absolutely true to you in order to get different outcomes in your marriage. And if you challenge those things, everything could be different for you. Everything could be better.
100%. And Brandon, I want to leave our listeners with a choose their own choice on this one. I'm going to give one last piece of advice here. and they can decide whether or not it's good or bad advice.
Are you going to make me vomit right at the end of this episode?
I don't know. You've heard it 1,000 times before. In fact, you could probably quote it. It's Mom's favorite.
Oh, I know what it is.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
We'll let our listeners decide. If you're going to fight, fight naked.
My mom has said that at every wedding for the last 10 years.
You guys can decide on that. We'd love to hear your comments on it.
Yeah, leave a comment. Let us know if that's good advice. And please, you guys, leave us a review and share this with your friends. Have a great day, guys.
See ya.